Hello everyone, Linker here, and today we're going to talk about how to not getting stuck by making bad decisions. So a lot of things in AFKArena are random, but one thing that I love is how it allows you to impact your own progress. And making the right decision right now is going to allow you some much needed flexibility in the future. So this is a classic butterfly effect. And better decisions right now are going to leave you in a better situation later, which makes you to make better decisions later, etc., etc., and so on and so on. So getting the right decision at the right time is going to be the big difference between stuck and making progress. Now let's look into what kind of bad decisions people are making when approaching the endgame, so you can get ahead by avoiding making them. First, we're going to take a look at the wish list. Now this is going to be my wish list, so it's not a general suggestion. But in a lot of senses, AFKArena has it so you are what you get, and most of what you get is going to come through the wish list, even if you do Stargaze, and we will talk more about that in a moment. So maintaining a wish list and setting your goals is crucial. We now have it confirmed that all tavern pulls will be all wishlist heroes. So that means that the vast majority of the heroes that you will get will be those heroes. But that also means that you will not get any other heroes through the tavern. So excluding or including the right hero in the right moment is going to be the difference between stuck and making mad progress, cutting through the endgame like butter. So let me warn you, think before you apply this next section or it will come back at you. With that warning out of the way, I'm going to put up here the default wishlist that I advise people in the mid-game. And the right way to use this is as a guideline. These are the heroes that will likely need, but plan ahead. What ascension do you want each hero to be? For example, Lorsan. Lorsan gains some much needed tankiness and has a nice signature item that you gain up to mythic or ascended, but past that, it's not a huge priority. Other heroes can actually get used here. However, Gwyneth is a hero that really needs to carry hard, so she can use every extra star and she makes great use of it, pulling off her wins in the late game. So for this section, let's go over good heroes to consider putting into the wish list, and then let's see how can they substitute the current heroes, just to understand the whole idea. And you should consider doing that for two reasons. Either if your team really needs a certain type of a hero, or if you see that one of the heroes that you already have has fallen off in priority. That's always going to be the case. Now for Lightbearers, Cecilia is a great invader that's off the wishlist that I just put there, but she's great. She invades, she has this damage reduction, while Hendrik and Strilda knock back and defend allies. So that's also very good for you to consider. Maulers are a relatively weak faction, but they have Tidus that's off the wishlist. He's a great synergistic Mauler carry. Even after the Verk buff, I would still not advise him. While I still personally enjoy the Verk buff, I think that Tidus is slightly better here. And K-Sauce can actually help you in tower because he has this ability that increases life leech, and after his great rework, he's now much stronger than he used to be. Lastly, another hero that you should consider is going to be Screg for his specific furniture, which is going to be very niche but might be useful. He is in for this case, but you may actually want to replace him for somebody like Numiso, who has very specific totems and synergies that no other hero in the game has. For wielders, good replacements is going to be Namora, a great consideration. A healer, a charmer, recently fell off slightly. Her furniture turning out to be not as good as many people thought, but a great hero nonetheless, especially if you have this slow team that kind of spirals out of control. And lastly, Gorvo is a great stunning CC hero that's going to help you take control of those other enemies that really suffer from those stuns and invades. And lastly, for Graveborn, there's many heroes in this section. And look out for Kelthor, a great carry that helps invade. He has this immunity, he lives after death, very useful even in Thorin sets. Odin and Isolde have both great niches. And lastly, Shamira is useful if you're still using her as your main carry, but she'll probably eventually go off the list. Now, this is how I'm going to wrap up the wish list, and really think about this when you make your decisions, because your wish list is going to be the heroes that you get. For example, in the campaign, I have to borrow Odin because I don't quite have him yet, and I still regret it because I'd love to make use of that mercenary for another slot. So now the second hero that we're going to look at is something that I talked about briefly, and it's going to be transitioning to stargazes. And I've seen plenty of people make this mistake, and I get them because there's no general information on what's the right time to transition to those stargazes. And there's not a single threshold or magic numbers of heroes that should get you to actually stargaze. Instead, this is going to be a highly personal decision. When do you do the tavern summons and when do you stargaze? You'll have to take into account your own arsenal and make this decision for yourself. And it's also not a one-way road. I used to stargaze all the time, but now I'm target summoning Damon because he's a great hero that I really want. But you can change between these if you know what you're doing. So let me give you the general guidelines on making your decisions. First, the reason that you stargaze is going to be to get heroes that aren't accessible through other means. So, for example, Athalia is not the best example, but for example, you have the God comp, and I'll pull it up right here, right quick, so you'll see it. And in it, you'll have Rowan, and that's obtainable through the factions. You'll have Aziz that you could get through those coins, but when you're talking about twins, when you're talking about Talene, and when you're talking about Mahira, they're incredibly rare to pull into Tavern. So if you want to get it, which most players will at some point, you should probably start stargazing Talene. But this is going to cost you more, this is going to slow you down, and we're going to run through it quick. Alright, and I am back now. Bear with me, we're going to run through those chances. It's going to be quick. Taverns. 300 diamonds per pull and 4.6% of the lead per each pull. So that's going to be about 1 in every 22 pulls that you have, and there's a confirmed pitted timer on top. So an average less than 6,600 diamonds per elite, and it's even better since you could get more than one elite, and the worst case scenario is just going to be fodder. Now let's compare that to the Stargazer. Stargazer is actually going to have 500 diamonds and many mediocre rewards that don't really help you. On top of that, heroes are going to be just 2%, so that means 500 diamonds, 2%, about 25,000 diamonds per each pull that you'll get. And it's unclear if there's a pity timer or what exactly it is, so you get the picture. Much slower, but much better than getting Celestials and Hypogeans through the Tavern, which is going to be about 1 per 330,000 diamonds per each pull. So this is going to be slower on the short term, but faster on the long term. So despite all this frightening resource talk, I'm a big enthusiast of stargazing relatively early. Now I'll explain it. So most players will have a decent comp and a half by chapter 25. And by then, if that's the case, you'll pave through most of the mid-game up to about chapter 30 just fine, and the main reason players get stuck is going to be levels, which you get the same rate either way. So this means the optimal time to start stargazing is about the end of mid-game, about chapter 25, and I'll give you those guidelines to follow when making your decisions. Have some ascended heroes so you aren't stuck, at least 5 or 6 of them so that you don't get stuck in the mid game trying to get to the late game, and have at least 2 campaign viable carry sets, not completely but at least the outlines of them so that you aren't stuck if the enemy comp counters your main set. For example, if you're relying on Chimera and the enemies have Iron, you want to have something to switch her for, otherwise she's probably going to be useless. And if you use Thoran and the enemy has an Aziz, then it's going to be just a very sad time for you. If you have both some ascended heroes and 2 campaign viable carry sets, at that point, as early as that, I would start stargazing. Stargazing early will allow you to progress when the endgame comes around, and you're going to have many sets that will need you to consistently carry from behind. So at that point, you know that most players who tavern pull blindly start getting stuck because the enemies scale very high and the carries aren't exactly what they used to be. So this means that having your amazing Chimera that cut you all the way through the mid game is just not going to be as good. So keep your eyes open, track your wish lists, and transition to stargazing at the right time. And if you do that, I'm sure you'll cut through the end game like the hero that you're meant to be. Thank you.